Alright, let's start from the beginning. My name's Henry, 38, and up until recently, I thought my life was in a good place. I had a decent job, a nice home, and a wife, Kathy, who I genuinely believed loved me. We had been married for 10 years, no kids, but we had a good routine. Or so I thought. Kathy has always been into poker. Not just as a casual game, but as an obsession. She played every other weekend with the same group, her friends from work and a few of their buddies. It started off innocent enough. I never really minded because I wasn't into poker myself, and honestly, it gave me a quiet night to watch my shows, have a few beers, and just relax. But in the last few months, something changed. Kathy started coming home late, way past midnight. She'd stumble in, looking disheveled, smelling like whiskey, her eyes darting around like she was hiding something. At first, I didn't think much of it, maybe just bad luck at the table, maybe the stress of losing money. But then, she started acting weird around me. She was short-tempered, distant. Some nights, I'd try to cuddle with her in bed, and she'd flinch like my touch was foreign. I'd ask how poker night went, and she'd give vague answers. It was fine, or just lost a little, nothing major. But I noticed the bank account told a different story. Small withdrawals here and there, sometimes $50, sometimes $200. It started adding up. One night, she came home really late. I was already in bed but woke up when I heard the front door creak open. She was whispering on the phone. I pretended to be asleep, but I listened. "Kathy, I know. I'll figure out, okay? Just stop calling me." A pause. Then she sighed heavily. "Kathy, yeah, I get it. I don't want to, but I have to." I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just laid there, feeling my stomach twist into knots. Who was she talking to? And what exactly did she have to do? The next morning, I decided I needed answers. I waited until she left for work, then checked her laptop. She never logged out of anything. She wasn't exactly tech-savvy, and she trusted me enough to not snoop. But that day, I did. And what I found, it made my blood run cold. A long string of messages from someone named Mark. "Mark, you lost fair and square, Kathy." Everyone at the table agreed. "Kathy, I know, but this isn't fair. I didn't mean to bet that much." "Mark, that's not my problem. A bet's a bet. You want to stay in the game? You pay up." "Kathy, I don't have that kind of money right now." "Mark, then we can work something else out." I scrolled further. "Kathy, no. Henry would kill me if he found out." "Mark, then don't let him find out." My hands clenched into fists. My heart pounded in my chest. What the hell did she owe Mark? And more importantly, what the hell was she willing to do to pay him back? That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. And I wasn't going to sit back and do nothing. I couldn't sit still after reading those messages. My mind was racing with a million thoughts. I needed to know exactly what my wife had done. Was she just borrowing money from this guy? Or was it worse? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I did something I never thought I'd do. I installed a small audio recorder under the dining table, the spot where she always sat when she got home late, and made her private calls. That Friday, poker night rolled around again. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving, acting like everything was normal. Like she wasn't hiding something huge from me. "Wish me luck," she said, forcing a smile. I barely muttered, "Good luck," back. As soon as she left, I grabbed my keys. I had a plan. Following Kathy. I knew the usual poker house, some fancy rental that Mark and his buddies used for their games. So instead of staying home, I drove out there and parked down the street. I had no idea what I was expecting to see, but I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving without answers. The game had already started when I got there. Through the windows, I could see them all laughing, drinking, playing their hands. Kathy looked different, almost nervous. Her knee bounced under the table as she played, and she barely touched her drink. Then an hour in, it happened. Kathy put down her cards and let out a frustrated groan. "I'm out." Mark grinned. "Not quite." She tensed. "I told you I don't have the money." Mark leaned forward, lowering his voice just enough that I had to strain to hear. "We already agreed on another option." Kathy swallowed hard, looking around at the others. "Not here." Mark smirked. "That wasn't the deal." The other guys at the table exchanged looks, a couple of them chuckling under their breath. Kathy's face turned red, and she shot a glare at them. "Shut up." Mark shrugged. "You want to keep playing with us, you follow through. Otherwise, you're out for good." I felt my pulse in my ears. What deal had she made? And why was she letting this guy talk to her like that? Kathy bit her lip, and after a long pause, nodded. Fine. Let's get it over with. My breath caught in my throat. She followed Mark into another room. I was done watching. The confrontation. I didn't even think, I just moved. I marched up to the front door and banged on it so hard the whole place went silent. A guy I didn't recognize opened it. Can I help you? I pushed past him without a word, heading straight for the room Mark and Kathy had disappeared into. When I swung the door open, my wife jumped back like she'd been caught in a crime. Mark just smirked. Well, looks like hubby found out. Kathy's face was white as a sheet. Henry, what are you doing here? I clenched my fists. I could ask you the same thing. Mark leaned against the desk, arms crossed, looking amused. This is a private game, buddy. You weren't invited. I ignored him and looked straight at Kathy. Tell me, right now, what did you bet? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Mark chuckled. Don't be shy now. You were pretty confident a few minutes ago. I turned to him. Shut your mouth. His smirk widened. Or what? That was it. I didn't even think, I just swung. My fist connected with his jaw, so hard he stumbled back into the desk, knocking over a lamp. The other guys rushed in, shouting, try to pull us apart. Mark wiped his lip and grinned, like he enjoyed it. You're gonna regret that. I pointed a shaking finger at Kathy. We're leaving. Now. She hesitated, looking back at Mark. And that hesitation, that 1 second of doubt, that was when I knew. She wasn't the woman I married anymore. I stared at Kathy, waiting, begging for her to grab her things and come with me, to show even a shred of guilt. But she just stood there, frozen, glancing back at Mark like she was caught between two worlds. That hesitation, it cut deeper than any confession ever could. Mark chuckled, rubbing his jaw. Looks like she's got a decision to make. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. There's no decision, Kathy. You're coming home. Now. She blinked, snapping out of whatever daze she was in. Henry, I was just... Mark scoffed. Go on. Tell him. Kathy turned bright red, her eyes darting between me and the other guys in the room. Then she lied. It's not what you think. I felt my stomach drop. Then explain it to me. She crossed her arms, defensive now. I lost a lot of money, okay? More than I should have. I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd get mad. That's not an explanation. That's an excuse. Mark smirked. She made a deal. Losers gotta pay up one way or another. Kathy shot him a glare. Shut up, Mark. But it was too late. My blood was boiling. I turned back to her. Pay up how? She bit her lip, looking anywhere but at me. It's just... Mark stepped forward, still grinning. She offered herself. I swear I saw red. Everything exploded. I lunged for him again, but before I could connect, the other guys jumped in, shoving me back. One of them even grabbed my arms, locking me in place. Kathy gasped. Stop. Just stop. I struggled against them. Let me go. Mark wiped his lip again and tilted his head. You don't get it, do you? She didn't have to do it. She chose to. I stopped struggling. What? Kathy's eyes widened, and she quickly turned to me. No, that's not true. But the look on Mark's face told me everything. He was enjoying this, enjoying rubbing it in. Mark shrugged. I mean, sure, she owed me, but I never forced her. She knew what she was doing. She wanted to keep playing with the big boys, and she knew the stakes. I looked at Kathy, searching her face for some kind of denial, some kind of truth. She burst into tears. I didn't know what else to do. That was it. That was my breaking point. I stopped fighting. I stopped yelling. I just let go. Because at that moment I realized something. I wasn't just mad. I was done. Completely, utterly done. The guys holding me must have felt the shift because they let go, sensing there was no fight left in me. I looked at Kathy one last time and said the coldest thing I've ever said in my life. You disgust me. Then I turned and walked out. And for the first time since this nightmare started, Kathy didn't follow me. I drove home in complete silence. No music, no phone calls, just the hum of the engine and the pounding of my heart. My hands were gripping the steering wheel, so tight my knuckles turned white. She didn't follow me. She didn't run after me, screaming that Mark was lying, that she didn't really mean it. She just stood there. That was all I needed to know. When I pulled into the driveway, I sat in the car for a while, staring at the house we had built together. The front porch light was on, just like it always was when I was out late. For years, that little light made me feel like I was coming home to something safe. Something solid. Now, it just felt like a cruel joke. The first blow. I didn't even turn the lights on when I walked inside. I just grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat at the kitchen table, and let everything sink in. Then my phone buzzed. I didn't even have to look, I knew it was her. "Kathy, we need to talk. Please don't shut me out." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Then another one came in. "Kathy, it wasn't what it looked like. I swear. Please just let me explain." I scoffed. "Explain what? That she chose to betray me? That she didn't even try to stop Mark from humiliating me? That she hesitated when I told her to come home?" Then a third message. "Kathy, I love you. Please." I slammed the phone face down on the table. I wasn't ready to deal with her. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and logged into our shared bank account. And that's when I saw it. Over the last 3 months, Kathy had drained nearly $7,500. Little by little, in small withdrawals, always the same nights as her poker games. And it wasn't just cash. There were payments to Mark's personal Venmo. My hands were shaking as I scrolled. It wasn't just money she owed him. She was paying him. For what? To keep quiet? To let her keep playing? To keep him from telling me the truth? My stomach turned. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a bad bet. This was deliberate. The call that changed everything. I wasn't going to text her back. I wasn't going to argue over the phone. I needed answers. And I needed to see the look on her face when I confronted her with the truth. So I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Henry." I cut her off. "How long?" Silence. "Kathy, how long?" "A few months." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. "How much did you lose?" She hesitated. "It doesn't matter." "How much?" "Almost 10 grand. I let out a bitter laugh. "Unbelievable." "Henry, I was going to pay it back. I didn't know how to tell you." I clenched my jaw. "So instead of telling me, you what? Paid him off in secret? What was the deal, Kathy? What exactly did you owe him?" More silence. Then she whispered, "Nothing happened." I gritted my teeth. "Don't lie to me." "I swear. It was just talk, just pressure. I never actually." I slammed my fist on the table. "Then why the hell did you hesitate when I told you to leave with me?" She sucked in a breath. You know what? Save it. "Henry, please, just come home. We can talk." I let out a slow breath. "You don't get it, do you? I am home." Silence. Then, finally, a broken whisper. "Are you leaving me?" I closed my eyes. I wanted to say yes right then and there. I wanted to end it, to be free from this mess. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I exhaled. "You'll find out soon enough." Then I hung up, and I started planning my revenge. I barely slept that night. I just sat in the dark, running through every possible way to make Kathy and Mark regret everything they had done. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make sure they paid. First, I needed to be smart. Blowing up in anger wasn't going to get me what I wanted. If I played this right, I could expose Kathy for the liar she was and humiliate Mark in a way he'd never recover from. So I started digging, gathering the evidence. By morning, I had a plan. First, I pulled every bank transaction, every Venmo payment, every withdrawal Kathy made in the last 3 months. I took screenshots of her texts with Mark, the ones I had already found on her laptop. The way she practically begged him to let her keep playing, how she agreed to his disgusting deal without even fighting it. Then I dug deeper. I reached out to a guy I knew, Jake. He's one of those tech-savvy types who can find anything if you ask the right way. We used to work together years ago, and I knew he'd help me out for a favor down the line. "Hey man," I texted him. "You still good at finding dirt on people?" Jake responded within minutes. "Who we ruining?" I grinned. That's what I liked about Jake. No questions. Just results. I gave him Mark's full name, his phone number, and the details of his poker group. "Find me everything you can on this guy." The perfect opportunity. While Jake worked his magic, I moved on to phase 2, setting Kathy up. I knew she would try to talk to me in person. She would show up at the house, fake cry, and spew more lies. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. So I sent her a text. I need time, but I'm willing to talk. Let's meet tomorrow at 7 at the house." She responded almost instantly. "Kathy, thank you, Henry. I love you. We can fix this." I nearly laughed. Fix this? She had no idea what was coming. Next, I made a quick call to her best friend, Sarah. Sarah had always been a little too invested in our marriage, acting like she was on my side whenever Kathy and I fought. If anyone could get Kathy to spill more lies, it was her. "Hey, Sarah," I said, making my voice sound tired and defeated. "I don't know what to do. Kathy's been telling me all these different things, and I don't know what to believe. I just need the truth." Sarah hesitated, but then she sighed. "Henry, she really messed up. She told me everything." Bingo. I played along. Everything. Sarah hesitated. She swore me to secrecy, but she said she only considered Mark's offer. That she thought about it, but never went through with anything. Lie. I clenched my jaw. "Did she tell you why she hesitated when I told her to come home?" Another pause. "She said she was scared. Scared you'd never forgive her." Another lie. I thanked Sarah and hung up. Now I had confirmation. Kathy was already rewriting the story, making herself look like a victim. Too bad for her. I was about to rewrite it for her. Jake delivers the final piece. That afternoon, Jake came through. He sent me a file with everything on Mark, his real poker history, the people he scammed, even a police report from 2 years ago when a woman accused him of doing something very similar to her. The charges were dropped, but the report was still there. Mark was a full-blown predator. And now I had proof. But the best part? Jake found out that Mark was running an illegal poker ring, taking bets way above the legal limit, skimming money off the top, and even fixing games to trap players like Kathy into debt. Oh, this was perfect. The stage is set. By the time the next evening rolled around, I was ready. I set up a hidden camera in the living room. Nothing fancy, just my old phone propped up on a shelf, pointed right at the couch. I was going to let Kathy talk. Let her lie. And then I was going to destroy her with the truth. At exactly 7 p.m., she knocked on the door. I took a deep breath, put on my best defeated husband face, and opened it. "Kathy," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." She looked relieved. "Henry, I held up a hand. "Save it." I pointed to the couch. "Sit." She hesitated, but she did as I said. I sat across from her, arms crossed. "I want you to tell me everything. No lies. No excuses." She nodded quickly, sniffing like she had been crying all day. I was stupid. I'd gotten over my head, and I didn't know how to fix it. Mark, he made it sound like I had no other option. I didn't say a word. I just let her dig her own grave. She kept going. But I swear, I never did anything with him. It was just a way to buy time. I never would have actually gone through with it. I tilted my head. "You hesitated when I told you to leave with me." She flinched. I was scared. "Lie." I nodded slowly. "So you never paid Mark off? Never gave him money?" She shook her head quickly. "No, never. I don't know what he told you, but—" I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. It was a screenshot of her Venmo payments. All of them. Her face drained of color. "Funny," I said, my voice ice cold, "because these payments say otherwise." She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. I pulled up a second file, the police report on Mark. I tossed my phone onto the table in front of her. "And in case you still want to defend him, here's a little reading material." She stared at the screen, eyes wide. I didn't know." I leaned in. "Yes, you did." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Henry, please." I cut her off. "Save your tears for someone who cares." Then I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. "Get out." She looked at me like she didn't believe what was happening. "Wait, we can fix this." "No, you can fix this. Somewhere else." She didn't move, so I leaned down, lowering my voice to a deadly whisper. "If you don't walk out of here right now, Kathy, I will personally make sure everyone you know sees exactly what you've been doing." Her breath hitched. I tilted my head. "Mark humiliated me in front of everyone. How do you think you're going to feel when I return the favor?" That did it. She stood up on shaky legs, her hands trembling. Out. She walked to the door, turned back one last time, but I was already walking away. The moment she stepped outside, I slammed the door shut. And I didn't look back. Kathy stood outside for a few seconds, probably hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. I watched through the peephole as she wiped her tears and pulled out her phone. Calling someone. Probably Sarah. Maybe Mark. I didn't care. A minute later, she walked to her car and drove off. I locked the door, exhaled, and sat down. She was gone. But I wasn't finished yet. The next move. I grabbed my phone and sent Mark a text. "Me, we need to talk. In person." I knew he'd take the bait. Sure enough, a few minutes later, he replied. "Mark, didn't think you had the guts. Name the place." I smirked. Oh, he had no idea what was coming. I chose a quiet bar on the edge of town. Neutral ground. Public enough to keep things civil, private enough for the conversation I planned to have. Mark showed up right on time, strolling in like he owned the place. That cocky smirk still plastered on his face. He sat down across from me. "Didn't expect you to call. Finally growing a spine." I ignored the jab. "I know what you've been doing." He raised an eyebrow. "You'll have to be more specific." I slid my phone across the table, screen facing up. First, the Venmo payments. Then, the police report. His smirk faded. "This ends now," I said. "Or I make sure everyone sees this." Mark's jaw tightened. "You wouldn't." I leaned in. "Try me." For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. "Good." Mark picked up my phone, scrolling through the evidence. His fingers twitched. His cocky act gone. "You have no idea what you're messing with," he muttered. I smirked. "Oh, I think I do." He clenched his jaw. "What do you want?" I leaned back. "Simple. You disappear. No more poker nights, no more calls to Kathy. You try anything? This goes public." Mark exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "Fine." I stood up. Smart choice. As I walked out, I could feel his glare burning into my back. Let him be mad. He'd just lost everything. The moment I stepped out of that bar, I knew one thing for sure. Mark wasn't going to take this loss quietly. Guys like him, they don't just roll over. They plot. They wait. But I wasn't going to give him that chance. I got into my car, exhaled, and sent one final text. "Me? Don't test me, Mark. This is your only warning." No reply. Good. Kathy's breakdown. I barely made it home before my phone started blowing up again, this time from Kathy. "Kathy, Henry, please. Just talk to me. Kathy, I need to explain everything. Kathy, I'm losing my mind. Just tell me what you want me to do." I ignored the first three. Then she sent something different. "Kathy, I told my parents." That made me pause. Her parents had always been on my side. They liked me, respected me. If she told them, it meant she was truly desperate. Curious, I replied. "Me and Kathy, they're furious. They don't even want me staying at their house. My mom won't look at me. My dad told me I disgust him. I should have felt bad. A part of me almost did. But then I remembered how she had hesitated at that poker table. How she let Mark humiliate me. How she had lied over and over again. I didn't feel bad. Not one bit. The friends start choosing sides. By the next morning, the news had spread. Kathy's friends started reaching out, some to me, some to her. People were choosing sides. Sarah, her best friend, called me. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "I never thought she'd do something like this." I kept my voice calm. She did, and she kept doing it, even after she got caught. Sarah sighed. "I'm so sorry, Henry. If I had known." "Would you have stopped her?" I asked. Silence. Then quietly, "I don't know." That told me everything. She might not have helped, but she wouldn't have stopped her either. "Thanks for calling, Sarah," I said, then hung up. Mark's last move. I was halfway through my morning coffee when an unknown number called. I answered. No one spoke at first. Just breathing. Then, "You think you won?" "Mark." I smirked. "I don't think. I know." A low chuckle. "You're playing a dangerous game, Henry." "So were you," I shot back. "And look where that got you." Silence. Then, "You'll regret this." I laughed. "Already moved on, buddy." Then I hung up. Let him stew in it. The final straw. That evening, Kathy showed up at the house. She knocked frantically, her voice shaking. "Henry, please open the door." I took my time. When I finally opened it, she looked wrecked. Red eyes, messy hair, like she hadn't slept in days. "I lost everything," she whispered. "Mark is threatening me. My parents won't talk to me. Everyone knows what I did. I have no one." I stared at her, completely emotionless. Not my problem. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Henry, please. I messed up. I'll do anything to fix this." I shook my head. "There's nothing left to fix." Her lip trembled. "You don't mean that." I leaned in, my voice cold. "Yes, I do." Then, without another word, I closed the door in her face. And this time, she didn't knock again. After I shut the door, I waited. Listened. Kathy didn't knock again. No more begging, no more pleas. I peeked through the blinds. She just stood there, motionless, staring at the ground. Her shoulders slumped, her hands gripping the sides of her sweater like she was trying to hold herself together. Then, after what felt like forever, she turned and walked away. I exhaled. She was finally getting it. There was no way back. Cutting the last ties. The next morning, I made it official. First, I called my lawyer. I want a divorce, I told him, my voice steady. He didn't seem surprised. I figured this was coming. You want to go after any assets? I thought about it. Taking her for everything might have felt good, but I wasn't interested in dragging this out. No, I said. I just want out. He nodded. I'll get the paperwork started. That was step 1. Step 2. Cutting her off completely. I blocked her number. Blocked her on social media. Deleted every picture, every message, every trace of her from my phone. She was done. Kathy's desperation. That afternoon, Sarah texted me. Sarah, Kathy wants to talk to you. Just once. Please, Henry. I ignored it. Then another message came in. Sarah, she's not okay. She's completely breaking down. Just meet her for 5 minutes. I stared at the screen, debating. Then finally I replied. Me, not my problem. I didn't owe Kathy anything anymore. She made her bed. Now she had to lie in it. Mark's fall. A few days later, I got the news I'd been waiting for. Jake, my tech-savvy friend, sent me a link. Mark got arrested. Turns out, after I sent him that warning, he got desperate. Tried to set up another illegal poker game. Except this time, one of the players was an undercover cop. Busted. He was facing fraud charges, illegal gambling charges, and since this wasn't his first offense, he was screwed. I smiled. Poetic justice. A final goodbye. Weeks passed. The divorce papers were filed. Kathy tried reaching out through friends, family, even her parents, but I never answered. Then one evening, I got a letter in the mail. From Kathy. I almost threw it away. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. It was short. Messy handwriting. Tear stains on the paper. Henry, I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't blame you. I just want you to know I've lost everything. I hate myself for what I did to you. If I could take it all back, I would. I hope one day you find someone who truly deserves you. I'm so sorry. Kathy. I stared at it for a long time. Then, without a second thought, I tore it in half and tossed it in the trash. Kathy was my past, and I was finally done looking back. After tossing Kathy's letter in the trash, I stood there for a moment, letting it sink in. This was it. The last piece of her. The final loose end. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no nostalgia. Just relief. A clean slate. The next day, I met with my lawyer. He handed me the finalized divorce papers, stamped and sealed. It's official, he said, sliding them across the desk. You're a free man. I looked at the papers, then at him. That's it. He smirked. That's it. No drama. No last-minute fights. Just a clean break. I signed where I needed to, shook his hand, and walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in months. Kathy's life falls apart. I didn't go looking for updates on Kathy, but they still found me. Sarah texted me a few days later. Sarah, Kathy moved out of her parents' house. She's staying with a friend now. She's not doing well, Henry. I ignored it. Not my problem. A week later, another message. Sarah, she lost her job. Again, I ignored it. She had made her choices. Now, she was living with the consequences. A night out. A few buddies convinced me to go out for drinks to celebrate the divorce. I hadn't been out much since everything went down, so I figured why not. We hit a bar downtown, grabbed a booth, and for the first time in forever, I actually laughed. Real, genuine laughter. Halfway through the night, a woman at the bar caught my eye. She smiled. I smiled back. And just like that, I realized. Kathy was nothing but a distant memory. I hadn't planned on talking to anyone that night. I figured I'd have a few drinks, enjoy the company of my friends, and head home. But then, there she was. She was sitting at the bar, sipping a cocktail, laughing at something the bartender said. And when she caught me looking, she didn't glance away. She held my gaze. Smiled. I hadn't felt that in a long time. That simple electric pull. My buddy nudged me. Go talk to her, man. I hesitated. It wasn't that I was nervous. I just wasn't sure if I was ready. Then I thought about Kathy. About how much she had taken from me. How much time, trust, and love she had wasted. And I decided I wasn't going to let her take any more. So I grabbed my drink and walked over. Meeting Emily. Hey, I said, leaning against the bar. She looked up, smirking. Hey, yourself. Her confidence caught me off guard in the best way. She wasn't shy, wasn't playing games. I'm Henry, I said, offering my hand. She shook it. Emily. I sat down next to her. Can I buy you a drink? She raised an eyebrow. That depends. Are you a good guy, Henry? I chuckled. I like to think so. She studied me for a second, then grinned. All right. Surprise me. I ordered us both around, and before I knew it, we were lost in conversation. Emily was different. She was sharp, funny, and didn't tiptoe around anything. So tell me, she said after an hour, swirling her drink. What brings you out tonight? I debated for a second. Should I tell her the truth? Screw it. I just finalized my divorce. Her eyes widened slightly. Wow, that's a big deal. Yeah, I admitted. It is. She didn't look uncomfortable. Didn't try to change the subject. Instead, she smiled. Well, congratulations. She clinked her glass against mine. To new beginnings. I smirked. To new beginnings. And for the first time in a long time, I actually believed in them. The night with Emily was different. Not forced. Not complicated. Just two people talking, laughing, enjoying the moment. We exchanged numbers before she left, but I didn't rush anything. I wasn't desperate to fill a void. For once, I was just content. But of course, life doesn't let you move on that easily. Kathy's last attempt. A few days later, I got an email. Subject, please, Henry? I almost deleted it without reading. Almost. But curiosity got the best of me. Henry, I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to say this. I lost everything. My job. My friends. My family barely speaks to me. And it's all my fault. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, just let me see you. One last time. I need closure. Kathy. I stared at the screen, completely numb. Closure? Closure? She wanted to feel better about what she did. That's all this was. I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked her email. She had already taken too much from me. I wasn't giving her a second more. Emily reaches out. That same evening, I got a text. Emily, hey stranger. Still celebrating freedom, or have you come back to reality? I chuckled. Me, a little of both. You? Emily, depends. If you say you're free tomorrow night, then I'm fantastic. I grinned. Me, I think I can clear my schedule. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about the past. I was too busy looking forward. The next night, I met Emily for dinner. No loud bars, no distractions, just the two of us, a quiet booth, and a chance to see if this was real. And damn, it felt real. She was sharp, funny, and didn't tiptoe around things. She asked about my past, and I told her the truth, without the bitterness, without the anger. And she listened, not out of pity, but because she actually cared. At one point, she tilted her head and smirked. So, do you think you'll ever trust again? I thought about it. About Kathy. About everything she took from me. Then I looked at Emily. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the answer. Yeah, I said, smiling. I think I will. She grinned. Good. After dinner, we walked for a while. No rush, no pressure, just enjoying each other's company. And when she kissed me goodnight, I knew something had shifted. Kathy was my past. Emily? Maybe she was my future. Weeks passed. Then months. Little by little, the weight of Kathy's betrayal faded. It wasn't overnight, and it wasn't easy, but every day, I felt lighter. Stronger. And Emily? She was still here. We took things slow, but damn, did it feel different. There were no secrets, no lies, no hesitation. Just honesty. Just trust. One evening, we were sitting on my couch, sharing a pizza, when she looked over at me. You don't talk about her anymore, she said. I blinked, realizing she was right. I hadn't thought about Kathy in weeks. Not in anger, not in sadness, just nothing. I shrugged. She doesn't matter anymore. Emily smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. Good. And just like that, I knew. I had won. Not with revenge. Not with anger. But by moving on. Kathy was just a chapter in my past. And my future. It was finally mine again.